And this is a first for me on YouTube Live. So you guys are in this with me. All right, we are live. I am so excited
this is a first
for
this
me
on YouTube Live. So you guys are in this with me.
There you go. They already know this too. All right, let me put this on mute. So yes, I'm super excited to be here with all of you, Swati, Roman, Dedu, Jenny, and Diana. I'm going in a circle in my mind. So I just see you here in my space, sitting with me all together. And this is just a very special moment for me. One, to have all of you in the same space, not only the same space to just talk and chat away, but talking about this very important subject of motherhood. And for those who don't know, we've had a Spiritpreneurship Summit about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And out of these 5 wonderful people in here, 4 were speakers there, and they have shared about their lives. And what came up and why they are here today is because they shared a lot about how motherhood has changed them, not necessarily in a bad way or in a good way. It just changed them. It was an additional identity that was coming into our lives and was part of it. And Jenny, who is the newbie here, she was just showing up at the right time, in the right place, where I just saw her heart that she really is here to empower parents to be truly themselves. And she really, when she shows up as, that's what life is like. I'm not wanting to do this right now, but here I am. So this is kind of like a short intro to Jenny for those who don't know her. But I'm going to go introduce every single one of here as well for those who have not seen all these other wonderful speakers on my summit. And so I'll start with Swati Radke. She's in Georgia, and she came into my life about 18 months ago. We took a program together, and we just been connecting ever since. And there's just this wonderful, she's a wonderful person. She's a wonderful mother with all the challenges she's going to share with us. We're not going to go into details, but that's really why she had to be here and why I connect with her, especially because there's just so much that we want to bring forward as who we are as individuals. Then we have Roman Franzen, who I've known for, I mean, how old am I?
So I know. Let's not go into details. It's been a couple of decades.
It's been a couple
even
of decades.
more.
So she's currently in London, but she's originally from Switzerland, where I'm from as well. And so she is here because she has a very special relationship with her children. She is a stepmother of 2. And so I really wanted her to be here because it's always easy to talk about your children and how they are in fact affecting you. And then but how is it to be a stepmother to children that are yours in some ways and not? And so really to see how those challenges are coming our ways if you are a stepmom yourself. And then we have Dedu Schaller, who I've also known for a few decades now, who is also from Switzerland, still is in Switzerland, who is an entrepreneur, a wonderful human being who brings this amazing, amazing work forward, how to find yourself, how to be yourself in the works with yoga and this well-being, this space of well-being. So this is really amazing to have her here. And Jenny Mortak, we already introduced her slightly. So she's on the West Coast, not exactly sure where. Where are you on the West Coast?
So I'm over in Washington State in the US. So it's getting a little light, but it's still pretty dark this morning.
Oh, beautiful. Well, now we know where you are at home. I love Washington State. It's amazing. And as I said, she's a parent empowerment. She has the parent empowerment group that she just had a 3-day like power up, how to like be yourself, but also like tools and tips on how to be around the tantrum, and just be with these challenging children, because that's what they do. They're here to challenge us. They're here to really push our buttons, literally push our buttons, and make us go to places we usually don't want to go. And then last but not least, we have Diana Vinskyteland-Borg. She is also one of a dear friend of mine who I've met a year ago. in very funny ways. And so here she is, because we've been connecting also through how motherhood has really shifted our awareness. And I'm just excited to have her here. She's been a super, super great supporter of my summit and all these other amazing things that she's been bringing forward in consciousness and working with Dr. Shafali. And yeah, so I'm super excited to have her here and bring all of you's wise experiences as being mothers in your life, however long that's been, I mean, really, it's being like thrown at us. So, I mean, I introduced you, but feel free to, we're going to go around. Everyone can introduce themselves, tell us what, about your children, and one or two or many of your challenges that you're facing on a daily basis. So enough of me, now up to you. So Swati, please go ahead.
Thank you, Raditya. This is a beautiful panel of moms I'm seeing here. And it's just good to see everyone in their own element, without the kids. But so I'm going to start. My name is Swati Rohatgi, and I am from Marietta, Georgia, originally from India. I have one child, one beautiful, wonderful, loving, caring son. His name is Avi. He's 5 years old. And interestingly, I think one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing with motherhood is, I would say, identity crisis and management. And I feel like after the birth of my son, I have lost and found myself. And I think, so I'm going to just keep it open and honest. I am a postpartum psychosis survivor. And this transition, it was very hard. Transitions are always very hard. And to keep myself, how to pull myself out of that. I know what I've been through. And sometimes the biggest challenge that I face is that the apathy and the ignorance that's out there towards mental health, because everyone's cooing around the baby. How's the baby doing? What's the baby doing? But nobody has ever asked, like, how is the mother doing? And it's strange that in these modern times when the modern science is all advanced, we still don't know what postpartum is. And so that's one area I'm challenged with. I have a yoga therapist on board, constant yoga therapist on board. I have a Ayurvedic doctor on board. I have a psychiatrist on board. And I feel like I just am in this loop of getting help. And I'm also an Ayurvedic student. So I am also trying to, I think I'm like this messenger now, that I have to give this message for mental health and help other moms and other women going through this. So I would just say that it feels like it's hard right now, but it will all unfold in its time. And that's the plan of the universe. So long story short, thank you.
Thank you, Swati. This is beautiful. And, of course, you're coming in with a vengeance. It's like, this is what's going on. And like, you're really showing the difficulty of being a mother, period, and the challenges that you're bringing forward and sharing. And I know that in the next month, we're talking about diseases. We're having you back on, and we're going to go more into this experience that you had in this postpartum depression experience. And so I really commend you coming in here and sharing this experience and being straightforward and honest, because this is really what this space is meant to be, to show these sides that we usually try to hide, not because we want to, but because we're not supported when we do share them anywhere in the world. Because as you said, we're being judged, we're being, we're getting the side eye, and we just don't feel comfortable. And so there's not support there in just a regular community. We have to go to these places and get the support that will bring us to those places. So I appreciate you for that. Thank you so much. Well, off next in my window is Roman Franson. Please introduce yourself and all the beautiful things.
Thanks, Aditya. Thank you very much for having me. So my name is Romain, as you already mentioned. I moved from Switzerland to England 4.5 years ago. I am married now, and I'm a stepmom of two girls. They're 11 and 13, and I've been in their lives, I would say, about 8-9 years, something like that. So they were fairly young when they had to start to put up with me, and I'm going to be honest. I've never wanted kids. Was never one of my goals or my desires, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but I just want to keep it honest as well as what you did. Thank you for that. Never wanted kids. Fell in love with a wonderful man, and he had 2 kids. And for me, it was an absolute no-brainer that I would cherish them and love them, and be there for them. There are, I think, similar challenges with stepchildren, and there are completely different challenges with stepchildren compared to your own physical children, I guess. I can't really share my thoughts with a lot of people because I don't know many moms, because I don't surround myself with many moms. I know my mom, and I know Aditya, and we chat. But other than that, it's really interesting for me, and I said that to you, Aditya, to hear your stories and your challenges, if they compare to mine, and just to share, I guess. And who knows, maybe I meet a step mom along the way at some point, and we can share. But that's my story.
That's wonderful, Romain. Thank you for sharing this. And if anybody in here or anybody who's watching this knows a stepmom, get us in contact.
Hit me up.
Because yes, I mean, you're bringing up exactly what this is also, here is to share our experiences. And even if they are not the same challenges, even if they're not exactly the same, we will discover that a challenge is a challenge, no matter how big or small they are. It's something that we're dealing with. It's something that we're struggling with, and we want support. And it doesn't mean support in like, oh, hey, how about you do this? How about you do that? Sometimes that's not what we're looking for. Sometimes we just want to share. We just want to let you know, hey, this is what's on my mind. Hey, this is what's going on. And have someone there that's just listening and saying like, I hear you. I don't know how it's like. I don't know what to tell you, but I hear you. And yes, thank you so much. This is great. Well, next up is Dedu Schaller. Welcome.
Thank you, Raditya. I'm so honored to be here and share a little bit of my story. So my name is Dedu, and I currently live in Switzerland, and I am a mother to a 2-year-old daughter whose name is Sahina. And there are so many challenges as a mother. I don't know where to start. But maybe I'll start with the first challenge. The first challenge of, what we already talked about is the challenge of your identity being shifted, and it feels like being cracked open and thrown into this new experience. And who are you in this experience, and who are you turning into? And like, you meet parts of yourself you really have never met before, and it's very easy to lose yourself as well. So for me, after giving birth, the first, I'd say, 3 months were very challenging, and then I literally counted the weeks until my daughter was like 1 week older and 1 week older. Not because I was not, it was just very intense, and I've never been through such an intense experience. And I think after probably 18 months, I started to have some more space to myself. Like before being a mother, I needed a lot of space for myself. I needed a lot of me time, a lot of time just, I don't know, reading a book, doing whatever I just wanted in that moment. And that was just suddenly gone. And that kind of after 18 months, I reemerged, and I had some more, like I had newfound time slots where I could go into that version of myself and like finding some me time and some space for myself. But that was connected to, yeah, to accepting help and, you know, being okay with not doing it all by myself. Like that's also a big topic. Like before, I was just very used to, you know, just doing it all myself. And if there was a challenge, I would, you know, face the challenge. And then suddenly you're no longer in that space. You really need help. And yeah, like I'd say after 18 months, got more and more of that space, and that help was already there before, but it gave me space to breathe, you could say. And I say all that while really loving my daughter, but still like being in that, you know, space of, ooh, this is new and this is challenging and it's intense, and like, who am I in this whole experience, and kind of refinding yourself after a while, and being okay that you're a new version, you know, you're a new version. You cannot go back to who you were before. And you now have, at least for me, like just my daughter is my number one priority. Like I cannot, like if she's not well, I'm not well. Like if you know, it's just my job changed because I no longer wanted to work the hours I used to work, and I no longer wanted to yeah, compromise on my time with her and what I do for a living. And so just like all aspects have changed, and to me what always amazes me is that with her I can just feel the whole spectrum of emotions. And I can go from, you know, just utter despair and and yeah, and then I can go into total love and just like unconditional love, and like going from one part, like one side of the scale to the other one, and kind of going through the whole spectrum during a day, and you know, jumping back and forth. It's intense. It's intense. I mean, it's rewarding, but it's intense. So yeah, for me it's been an intense roller coaster, one that is, you know, at the top, it's just really amazing and there's just so much love. But there's not only the top of the roller coaster.
This is great. Thank you, Dedu. Yes, and that's exactly how I introduced our conversation here. And even Jenny, who I will just bring up in a second, she reposted. It's like, did you see what she said? It's not about all the joyful and happy moments that we're experiencing as parents. It's actually also bringing awareness to those challenging and difficult times, and those frustrating and despair and angry and sad parts that bring. And Dedu, I cannot tell you how much that meant for you to say about the spectrum has opened up to these emotions. I mean, that is literally, I actually never thought of it that way, but this is exactly what motherhood does. It just explodes of emotions, the extent, the intensifying ways of feeling them. It's like, it's really crazy. And yeah, you just made me realize, like, oh my God, this is where I have to bring more breath, as Roman was saying, like, in to notice, like, oh my God, I'm just experiencing this crazy emotion right now. Let me just take that in and not like try to shove it away, which we usually, not necessarily people in this group, but what we as humans try to do is we shoving away the emotions that don't bring us joy. And I'm calling life the joy ride. So here we have your roller coaster that you're bringing up and down. Thank you so much. That's great. Yeah, so Jenny, here we are.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate all those little nods. It's been so nice getting to connect with you in detail. Like, there are no accidents. I love this. So my name is Jenny Murtaugh. I'm one of the founders of the Parent Empowerment Movement that Raditya mentioned. And I feel like this really sums up why I'm doing what I'm doing there. We all have our unique stories that we're telling right now, and yet all of us are going, uh-huh, yes, even though that story is not my story, I relate in this way, this way, and this way. So thank you all for saying what you've said so far. And Swati, I want to thank you for sharing your experience with your postpartum experience. Because for me personally, I became a mother a little over 2 years ago, and I wouldn't have had tools to explore what I went through if a dear friend hadn't opened up to me and talked about her experience with postpartum rage. I wouldn't have ever known there was even anything other than postpartum depression that we barely talk about. And there's such a huge range. So thank you for mentioning that for other people here. It's really important. So like I said, I became a mother 2 years ago. I have a son who's almost 2.5, and he's terrifically 2. It's one of my favorite ages. I've actually been a preschool teacher for years before this. And the reason I got into teaching is because the only thing I ever knew my whole life is that I did want to become a parent one day. Everything else was pretty confusing, but that was the one thing that I did know. But that also kind of comes with this, you get this notion in your head like, oh, and then I'll be a mom, and then I'll be happily ever after, even if you're not consciously thinking that. But, we kind of do that sometimes. Some of us do. And so that in itself poses challenges, just having to dispel all the things and seeing the whole spectrum with the highs and lows. So probably the challenge I've worked through the most as a parent has been really communication, in terms of being able to, even in the first place, just be honest with myself about what I needed, what I wanted, what I valued, what was important to me. I know that's something that a lot of people who identify as female struggle with, this ability to communicate, this feeling like we have permission to voice what's important to us in various ways. And so because after being a teacher for so long, after wanting to be a parent for so long, I think it kind of gave me a nice kick to say, no, like, now is the time to stand up. If you're ever going to stand up for yourself and what's important, now's the time. So it's been this beautiful learning opportunity, but I've had to reteach myself how to speak what I mean, and to say it in a way where I'm believing myself, I'm standing by it, and I'm being fair and clear in my explanations and my communications with my partner, with my co-parent, with my support people, and with the world around me. So we've had a lot of challenges as a family. It's my husband, my son, and I, and we're this 3-person team, and it's our job to figure out how we want to be in this world around us, and what's important to us, and what we're going to tell other people is important to us. So there's been a lot of growth there, but I know it's not done, and it's a big piece of the puzzle. And that's really my personal experience in that, and other places of growth are part of why I started the Parent Empowerment Movement and did the Power Up, because so much of parenthood isn't just knowing how to deal with the difficult emotions your child has, how to deal with tantrums, how to deal with my teenagers in this phase or whatnot. It's also, how do I process and understand all of the changes happening with me, all of the emotions I have, and everything that's important to me as a parent and an individual. And we're never going to have it all totally figured out. It's always going to be this growth period. So I'm really excited to be here growing with you all today. So thank you again, Raditya, for inviting me on. I'm very honored to be here.
Well, 100%. I mean, I'm so glad you are here. Also because, it's just this new way of living, even though, even if your child is 8 years old, 20 years old, it's always a new way of living. It's never, ever going to be the same. Your child is evolving. So are you. And as fast as you think they're growing, you are growing. And so it really is like, you can't catch up. Before, as Daddy beautifully said, like, you can take time. You can say like, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, I'm going to do this now. And you can you make your own judgments when and how fast you want to grow, but now your child determines your growth. And if you are not allowing yourself to grow with them, with their challenges, with your challenges, and go simultaneously at the same time, you will then discover some challenges at the same, like challenges that you don't even know exist. And so I'm so happy to have you here and be in the space with all of us. And I just want to say before we go on to Diana, we have Lisa Kindle, who I met through another platform, and she's actually on here, and she was mentioning that she has 2 stepchildren. So there you go, Roman, we already found you someone. She's an amazing person. She does some crazy art and like really cool things. So I'll connect you with her, although they're already older, I mean, adult stepchildren, and she has one of her own. So, you know, she can then expand a little bit. And she's just saying that just being a mom is hard work, happy to be a resource to other women. I didn't have when I was raising my daughter. And so this is exactly what we need to do. We need to change that paradigm, that we need to make this an important subject with everything included, whatever happens when you give birth, to how it is to be with a teenager. And so moving forward to Diana, who actually has close enough of teenager age kids, I think, right?
Right. Yes. Nice to be here. Thank you. Thank you for sharing everything, ladies. And it's just so funny that what everything that you said before this talk, I actually sat down and looked at the questions, and I actually wrote down my thoughts because I have so many of them, because my kids are 10 and 14. So I've been on this road for quite a long period of time, and everything that you girls said, I've been through. and you know, I could recognize myself with all of it. And that's beautiful that you said, Raditya, because at the end point in one of your questions, I was also wanted to talk about that one of the most biggest thing that we can do is to change together with our kids, adapt and change and learn from them, because they are our greatest teachers. That's what I learned during my 14 years as a mother, that they are our greatest teachers. And yes, they trigger us. They do all the time. But if we see those triggers as a teaching moment, the life will get easier. And it took me many years to learn that. So I've been struggling for quite many years to being a mom. So I'll try to make it short. And please, Raditya, just stop me. But since my journey was a bit longer, so it maybe takes a little bit longer. So first of all, Svati, thank you for sharing your story. The thing is, I think I haven't been diagnosed, but I think I had postpartum depression too. But no one diagnosed me. And just one doctor asked me, but how are you feeling? And my tears were just running. And then they found out that I had Hashimoto's disease. So my hormones were out of balance, and I was crying. And as you, Dadu, said as well, I mean, I was totally destroyed first months, and I was totally jealous of my husband, who was so cool and calm, and he was a great dad and had great connection with the kid. And I was our oldest, and I felt that I couldn't connect, and I was stressed all the time and was exhausted. I couldn't sleep. He slept, you know, all of it. And it's not easy, and not many people are talking about it. And actually what we are carrying then often, it's guilt and shame, and makes us like live in such a prison. And I was carrying that and didn't talk openly about it because it was shameful, and I thought something was wrong with me. I also, I mean, being a career woman, and I wasn't sure even I wanted to have kids like you, Romain. And then me and my husband, we discussed, and you know, his arguments went over, because I always loved kids. But why I didn't want kids? Because I was not sure I could manage to have career and being a mother, the mother that I wanted to be. And of course, when our youngest was one, I burned out because I worked way too much, and I wasn't happy with myself because I wasn't there enough. I wasn't conscious enough of my kids, and I wasn't the mother I wanted to be. But also I wasn't the mother that I thought I should be, because of the surroundings and what was expected of us, I thought, because all the books that I read, all the papers, you have to be this jolly mom who gives kids a lot of attention and makes a lot of things together. And the thing is, I wanted to be that mom, but it didn't go together with my career. not at all. I was too exhausted. I didn't have that energy, no time. And so all these things came together, and yes, I lost myself a few rounds during these 14 years, and I have to find myself again. So my identity shifted many times, actually, and I'm still on that figuring out path now. And it hasn't been easy in relationships either. My husband and I were from different cultures, so I guess you guys who are from, you know, have spouses from different cultures. I mean, we have different, and my husband, luckily, he wanted to be very active in this parenting. We shared maternity leave and paternity leave almost equally and stuff like that. So it was really equal. And it's really great for the kids and the connection, but it's not easy when you have two different views on how it should be, and both parents are kind of stubborn. So there have been quite many discussions and conflicts and stuff like that. But now, when I look back, now I'm actually grateful for it. But I wasn't during all that journey. It wasn't easy, and I mean, I burned out twice. I got in deep depression a few times, and yes, life taught me many lessons. And but now I think we are giving our kids, finally getting to the point where we kind of think that we having our own view how our family should be, not how he was raised and I was raised, trying to find this new path. And what helped me really a lot was mindfulness, and also conscious parenting, which I found a few years ago, and I admired that. And then I became a conscious parenting ambassador there. And it really helped me heal, because for once I could be open, I could talk about it, I could listen to other people and recognize myself. And finally, I realized I'm not alone. Most of us have similar challenges. Most of us have similar worries. And I mean, that's one of the biggest challenge for me as a mom. I'm constantly worried for the kids' safety, that everything will be fine for the future, and you know, that they will be good in school, and so on and so on and so on. And all of these worries are also stressing you out. So this conscious parenting has given me the space to breathe and take a pause and realize that we don't have to stress. We don't have to have all these high expectations on us. But actually, the pivot thing for us is actually to take care of us first, not of the family first, which we should do as well, but especially when they were small. But don't forget ourselves, to feed our soul and energy cup that we need. Only then we can be aware of our kids and mindful, and you know, give them what they need, and be better guides to them. So that's what I learned. I wanted to be a teacher for my kids, but I realized I'm not supposed to. I'm just barely a guide for them, because they are different personalities. They learn in different ways, and I should be a role model rather than a teacher to them. And yeah, it taught me so many things. Patience and conscious pause is very important, especially when I'm on my verge to getting angry and or feel all these emotions. I learned that I need to breathe, and it helps a lot. So it's my long story.
Well, thank you very much, Diana. And I mean, you know, you're just connecting it back to the summit, what you were talking about, because she was talking about breath. She really brought more attention on like she brought different tools and breathing exercises to us. So it just brings it all together. So that's lovely. Thank you for sharing that part. And also just the facets of how being a parent just goes in so many different directions, because yes, we had a life before that, and we can't just give it up because there's a child coming into our lives. We need to figure out a way to bring it all together, finding a way to merge them into one thing, which is very difficult, because we can be different identities, but we have to figure out a way how to give space to each of them. And the biggest thing, as I think it was Jenny that said, that is about communicating them. communicating them in a way that is understood by a child, that is understood by our partners, that is understood by the people around us, because it's not the same words we need to use in this group that is understood by our children, right? And so we really have to expand our word vocabulary. We have to really expand on how we see the world, which I actually just wrote an article today, how, you know, being raised and raising children, it just is what we experience, and how we see the world is how we live the world and how we live our lives. We cannot, it's very difficult for us to put ourselves in other people's shoes if we have never lived it, right? And so as I see this one reoccurring subject of like postpartum, which is a huge thing, as even Lisa, I want to bring an honor here to Lisa, who's watching on YouTube and is bringing up like postpartum is real. I heard you talking about this. I actually led a group of women who felt like they could not talk about their struggles when kids were small. I understand and lived through it. I went a year without being diagnosed. And so it really is something. And I'm going to introduce myself a little bit here, because I now, hearing the stories from you, I have to say, like, that's probably what I went through, and I didn't realize. I mean, yes, his doctor was asking me all these questionnaire to fill out, but like they weren't really like, no, I'm not this, no, I'm okay, you know, because in that moment you're going to the doctor, this is not what you're experiencing. It's when you are in the morning trying to get your kids ready for daycare, and then they're not doing what you want, but they're too young to say what they want, and you're like, what the heck, get ready. And so I have a 6-year-old, his name is Max, and he's a gem. He is very intelligent, and this has been my challenge. I mean, he's only 6-year-old, but he calls me out on things. He tells me if I do something not right, if I said something one way and I shouldn't do, like, and I'm not doing it. So, I mean, it's a tough job. And my challenge for sure is, like everybody said, like finding this individuality, being myself, not losing myself at the same time, and being still here for my son the way I want to be, and not to be overbearing or not to be too controlling and not to do this, but then still have the discipline. Like, I just found it super, super difficult to be that parent you want to be. And as you know, Roman was saying, I wasn't someone growing up who wanted to have children. I had no vision of that, how that should look like. All I knew is that I am with someone that I love, with my husband, partner, and I just knew I wanted something that we were having one, that brings us together as one. This is what I had envisioned, and that was supposed to be a child. That's a child, right? That you create together. And so that was my vision. And I had zero ideas what that would bring, the challenges that, I mean, for me, anger is definitely one of the ones that is the top of the list that I am experiencing as my greatest challenge. And it's really been something that I know it's not right. And it gets you to places you really don't want to be. And I advise you to, you know, seek help if that's the case in your case. And even if it's just a group of people you get along with, like, I really noticed that it helps me to just address the things that I'm worried about, the things that I'm frustrated about, with someone that is a parent themselves. Because if I can do this, even again, as I said before, even if they don't help me necessarily, but it gives clarity that you're okay. It's okay to experience this. It's fine to do this. Although sometimes the actions that I'm taking are not fine, but it's still to say, like, okay, but that's, you know, that's a one-time thing. Doesn't mean that has to be always like that. And so I really wanted to open up this conversation to all of you, so you can engage with each other. If there was something that really struck out to you that you wanted to say, that to one another. So we'll use the next few minutes, 10 minutes or so, in case you have to leave a little earlier, to just have this moment for you. And before we do that, I also wanted to just say the last thing that Lisa was mentioning on here, that she left a corporate job and opened her own design business. She grieved for 6 months while she left her daughter in daycare, and she gets it. It's a highly emotional and difficult to navigate on your own. And so this is to all our entrepreneurs in here, and to the people, which all of us actually are, to really be humble with ourselves and kind to ourselves. So these are my last words to the group. So please share what you want to share. You can just raise your hands, just unmute yourself, whatever you need to do to be heard and seen.
I'd love to jump on the anger conversation if anyone else is for that. Because I remember my experience as a preschool teacher, I taught for about 10, 12 years, and I'd always get the same comment from parents like, oh my gosh, you're so patient. You're so patient. And I finally started telling them like, actually I'm not. I appreciate that it looks like that. My aim is to be understanding. I am still very human. I still get just as ticked off as you do when they throw a block at me, when they scream at me, when they're not listening. Like, I have those same emotions that you have. My goal is to be understanding that, okay, like I think someone mentioned it, they're doing their job. I was a 1-year-old teacher and then a 2-year-old teacher in the past few years. And oh man, is that amazing parent practice, or what? Holy cow, having 14 2-year-olds in one room. It's so fun, but holy cow, there are so many big emotions. And so as I'm just sitting here with my son, who I've said is terrifically too, and he's doing all the things he's supposed to be doing, testing boundaries, finding his identity, learning what he can do with his body. Like his brain tells him to do these things that drive us adults crazy because we have ideas of what works and what doesn't, and he's still learning. And so the big phrase that I've said with him when he's doing something like screaming, yelling in my ear is, I don't let people scream in my ear. I don't let people, talk to me that way, something like that. Something where I'm communicating to him like, hey, just because I'm your mom, you still got to treat me as a person. That's what you and I do. We mutually respect each other, and that's really important. And I like being able to frame it that way because I'm also teaching him, okay, when you're older and you're able to talk more with people, I want you to stand up for yourself. But it's okay to feel how you feel. It's okay to stand up for what you need. And as a teacher, I've had to apologize to a lot of children and say, I got really upset. I raised my voice. I wasn't listening to you. I assumed you were doing something different. You were trying to tell me, I'm sorry. Let's try again. And I think there's a lot of power in that. And I think it's very reasonable that all of us still have all our emotions because we're still human.
Jenny, can I just ask you a question about that? Do you find, because of your experience as a teacher, do you think you have more patience with other people's kids or with your own? Is there a difference? Because I find myself sometimes, even though, again, they're not my children, and it's, again, another whole different story. But if you keep repeating the same thing over and over again, I find it sometimes harder at home to keep patience than at a school where it's still your job and there's still this kind of professional boundary. And if you slap that kid, you can't. I'm joking. That's a joke. That's a joke. No, but I mean, it's like, I think your inhibitions are a bit lower at home, I guess. Or how do you experience that?
All of it. I think I both at times have more patience with my child and less. I think there's times where, I totally had this vision when I was a teacher before I was a parent, and like, oh, it's going to be this way, this way, this way, which it isn't, totally isn't. So I think I have a little bit more empathy than I already did as I'm seeing the whole picture. So I think I've grown in my empathy now with my own child. And there's times where I have all this backlog of doing all these things with kids. Now my kid's in this place, why isn't this working? And I quickly, I snap, I get frustrated, and I have to, nap time's my worst. Nap time's my biggest trigger. It's so frustrating. I hated it in the classroom. So at home, it's like, oh, why is this testing me? So there's times where I suddenly, within like 60 seconds, everything's fine, to like, oh, how'd I get into the red? What happened? And I place my child in the crib and say, I'm hearing myself start to yell. I don't want to treat you poorly. And I also don't want to be treated like this, because he's interacting too. And I said, I'm going to go step out for 2 minutes and then I'll come back. So all of it, all of those things happen, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, thanks. I thought you were talking about your nap time. I would get mad as well if somebody was interfering with that.
Nap time. It's like this wonderful thing you look forward to, and also it's like, oh, but we have to make it happen. Oh God.
It's true. You kind of, as a mom and stepmom, I think you start to understand why so many adult women always used to say, oh, I'm going to take a nap now. You start to understand.
There's a new level of tired that you understand as a parent in any shape or form, whatever kind of parent you are or however you parent, you understand a new kind of tired, I think.
Can I just say one thing about this? Because I was working as a substitute teacher for 1 year for 8 to 9 year olds, and that actually I did find that it was easier for me to have more patience than my own children. But then what Dr. Shapali from Conscious Parenting is saying, which I find quite good, was that when we have our own children, we often think that they are ours, and we kind of owe them, and we have this responsibility to make them good people. You know, in school you have responsibility that they will, you know, behave and learn things, but at home you have this huge responsibility that they will be good people and good person, and when we owe them. So when they don't do what we want them to do, we get frustrated, because we actually frustrated that we are not doing a good job ourselves. But what I learned, because I did it totally, what I learned that when I started to release that expectation and see my kids as you know, sovereign beings, that I'm just happen to be a mom to, that I'm a guide for them in life, and release that expectation and this huge burden that I had, actually I got less frustrated and less angry at them, because I realized that, you know, I can't control it, and I can't control their future, and I can't control how they feel. The only thing I can do is control how I behave and what I say, and what life, or I'm showing them what's important for me and in my life, and hopefully maybe they will follow, maybe they won't, but I'm at least true to myself.
I'm just gonna chime in on that last sentence that Diana said, true to myself. Authenticity is such key, I think, in parenting now. And I'm just gonna switch gears back to postpartum, because I thought this message is important. Just want to tell all the moms who are watching and who are going through some certain episodes, or who might go through this, that do not take this as a label. Postpartum is a journey. You know, in India, we say a woman lives literally 3 lives. One, when she's born. Second is when she's married. And third is when she becomes a mother herself. So it's a journey, and it's a rebirth every time. So take it like that. And, you know, it's not a disease. So reach out for help is all I would ask for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swati. And, you know, yes, we want to bring awareness to all these parts of us and bring knowledge that we go through things, because emotions are just part of who we are. And that's just an expression of self. And so we're getting to an end here slowly. So Dedu, is there anything that you wanted to add as well?
Yeah, just quickly, if there's still time for it. Okay. So I just appreciate everything that has been said, because it also gives voice to a lot of things I'm feeling and maybe not consciously, yeah, voicing it, or like, you know, being able to put it into words. But like all of it is just, especially also when shame and guilt was mentioned. Was it you, Diana, who mentioned it? You know, like all these feelings, how just so nice to have that in the room with us, and being, you know, bringing more ease and more room to those feelings. I just have one last thought, and it's actually a teacher in India once told me, and it's a phrase that I always hear, is she said, "You can only give what you have," right? And so I just noticed, for me, in my day, in my experience as a parent, and this sounds very like normal and not so exciting maybe, but very simple. But to have that as a reminder that if I take care of myself, if I do step away from my family for 1 or 2 hours for myself, which maybe I experience as something very selfish and I feel guilty and, you know, around it, that this time for me is needed to just get back into a good space myself. And so if I can go into that good space, then I can give that space again to my family. And just for me, like I still feel guilty when I take time for myself. Like I still, but I I know now that you know, if I took the sleep that I needed, if possible, but if I took it, if I took some time away, if I allow myself to go for that massage, you know, then this will give me resources and just a little bit more of space so that I can show up um, a bit more grounded, a bit more, you know, grounded in challenging times, which, you know, a day has many challenging times, right? And sometimes very unpredictable. We don't know what's coming. So, but to just to allow myself to take that space. So it's just one of the biggest learnings I had to like to also to really respect my um what is it bedürfnisse, Aditya? My
My wants.
Your needs, your
my
needs.
needs. Yeah, yeah. Um, that has probably been one of the biggest learnings for me.
Thank you, Dedu. I love this. I mean, the messages from the group just poured in as you were speaking. I mean, I got to talk about those just quickly. We right away had like, yes, and therefore being unproductive can be amazingly productive, said by Jenny. And then Swati followed up, yes, the practice keep your hands full and then you can pour. And Roman has said that I introduced timeouts in our family, no questions asked. You everybody can take them and just have an hour to themselves. And yeah, I mean, there are amazing, great tools that are so simple you can't even come up with them, you know, like really, you don't have to do anything. It just can be as simple as giving yourself some time. And I think this is a great way to close this out, just to let us know, no matter if one of your identities is being a mother, doesn't mean that you're giving up who you are. You are still Swati, Roman, Dedu, Jenny, Diana, Raditya, and whoever else you are out there, Lisa, who was watching with us. You are a being of your own. You can make choices that are helping you to be the true self that you want to be. And I cannot tell you how uplifting this conversation was for me, to hear all your stories, to hear what you're going through, what your challenges are. And having this conversation doesn't mean we're done with our challenges. They're only increasing. But what it does, it will help us to know that there are other people out there that go through the same thing that you are. And I really commend everyone to become more vulnerable and okay to be uncomfortable by sharing those difficult moments. Because the more we can do that, the better we can feel about ourselves, the better we create communities around us that support us. And we are not afraid to say, hey, I am not okay. And that is okay, which Jenny has said a few times in the past few weeks. It's okay to not be okay. So I'm going to conclude by saying this. So thank you, everyone, for being here, for bringing your hour with me here. Anybody who's watching this, let us know what you think, what you're going through. And you know, hats off to all moms from Roman. So yes, everyone, you're doing a great job. You do what you can. And if you feel challenges, reach out to us, to someone else that you know can help you, therapists, groups, whatever it is that can bring you more resources and ideas on how to share. So thank you, everyone. Take care and be well.